Welcome, everyone. Today, I have an extra special guest with me. This is Karen Baines. Karen is a conscious wealth mentor and founder of the Conscious Wealth Code. For over a decade, Karen has worked with passionate, ambitious entrepreneurs by showing them how to master their own creational process, particularly around their business and finances. A priceless clarity is available in your whole life, allowing for breakthroughs and alignment with the work you are truly meant to be doing in the world. One of the main areas that Karen works with is alignment. Alignment allows you to see what you need to do differently, what to change, and how to change it. Karen will be sharing with you how, by aligning to your innate energy and gifts, you can add more value to your life and to the lives of others. Understanding the energy of alignment gives you an opportunity to unlock and reach that elusive next income level, as, in a nutshell, money is just a very happy byproduct of alignment, and the best definition of alignment is you do you. Karen, welcome.
I'm so happy to be here. And after that introduction, I feel like there's not a lot left for me to say.
Oh, no. I know you too well for that. You have lots more to say. So let's dive in.
All right.
And yes, that introduction, obviously, a lot of that is focusing around money and alignment, the relationship between those things. And so, as you know, this summit, we're looking at how to create extraordinary community building events. And there are 4 pillars, which are having the right stage, having the right tribe, having the right engagement, and having the right monetization strategy. And so we would think that yours would quite neatly fit into the 4th pillar, the monetization strategy. But really, and I know you, so I can say this with confidence, what you do, it transcends all those categories. Really, alignment is something that will improve every aspect of a person's, well, not just one's business, but one's life as well. So let's start by talking about alignment. What is it? What do you mean by alignment? And why is it so important for coaches and entrepreneurs to understand how it works?
Right. Okay. Well, alignment, that word is, I don't know if it's just me, but it seems to be everywhere at the moment. Yeah. Everywhere I look, people are using that word. And I think that it probably just as energy does, it's very subjective to whoever's talking about it. So when I talk about alignment, you mentioned it at the back end of your introduction. Alignment, when it comes to the work that I do in the world and what I teach my clients, is you do you. And so when you are doing what you're designed to do, what you're being called to do, what makes you feel good, that's the bottom line of it. If it feels good, whatever it is, then that's alignment. And if you can get all your alignment ducks in a row so that you're loving everything that you're doing in your business, you're loving everything that you've got in your life and the relationships that you're creating, and you're really mastering that creation process, alignment kind of, it will envelope you, it will follow you, it will lead you, it will be all and everything. Because that, once you are working with this whole concept of alignment and how I think about it and talk about it, you're in a constant co-collaboration with your soul and the universe. And it really is a beautiful thing. And all it really, in a nutshell, is you do you. Do everything that feels good.
So our feelings then are the measure we use to figure if are we in alignment, are we not in alignment. And so this relates to our kind of vibrational energy. Mm-hmm. If we're feeling good, our vibrational energy is higher. If we're not feeling so good, it's lower. Mm-hmm. So what difference does that make if we're functioning at a higher vibrational level? Then what? You know, how does it?
The difference that makes is that no matter what you're doing, you're vibrating. You're vibrating at a frequency. And you're absolutely right. When you feel good, you're vibrating at a higher frequency than when you're feeling rubbish. because when you're feeling rubbish, you're vibrating at a lower frequency, and everything in between. So everything that you actually do, all the tasks and activities that you spend time doing in your day, every single one of those things that you're doing, whilst you're doing them, you're vibrating at a frequency. Okay? Whether it's high or low, doesn't matter. The universe will react to it. That's where the co-creation comes in. Now that happens regardless of whether you're aware of it or not. That happens. Regardless of whether you are somebody who is tuned into this stuff, open to this stuff, has any knowledge around it, or whether you just go through your day asleep. This is what will happen. You do something, that doing vibrates at a frequency. The universe reads the frequency, because that's the language of the universe. It's the language of money. So the universe reads the frequency. That's where the law of attraction comes in. We're governed by many, many laws, not just the law of attraction. But the law of attraction is key when it comes to being a human being and our creational process. The law of attraction governs us because it simply states that like attracts like. The way I explain it to my clients seems to land in a much better way is the universe says yes. So you're vibrating at a frequency. The universe reads the frequency, says yes, and drops in something into your life that vibrates at the same frequency. That when you step into it, or you need to deal with it, or you participate in that consequence that the universe has dropped in for you, it will mirror the original frequency. It will say yes. That's why it's so important. So if you are doing alignment and you're doing things that you love doing, and it's joyful, or it's empowering, or it's expansive, or it's just fun, or it's loving, all of those things, as long as you're doing things like that, the universe is reading those frequencies and saying yes, 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 yes. And it's bringing you more and more things that you can do that are going to make you feel like that. Which means that your life and your business is going to be full of amazing, awesome things. But the universe also says yes when you're doing things that you don't really enjoy doing, when you're vibrating at a lower frequency. I talk about the energy of obligation, sacrifice, resentment, and guilt a lot in my business and in my work, because a lot of people spend a lot of time in obligation, and obligation is toxic when it comes to creating what you want, because the universe doesn't recognize that you might be doing something that you don't really want to do. It just recognizes that you're vibrating at that frequency. Therefore, you must want to vibrate at that frequency. So it just brings you more of those things.
So it's kind of a good news, bad news scenario, right? It's like the bad news is you're creating your reality. The good news is you're creating your reality. Either way you want to look at it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You talk also about choices and consequences. So it's just it's sort of another way of approaching this topic.
Yeah. And
so can you explain that a little bit, the choices and consequences? You've touched on it already in that, you're doing something, and this also relates, everything we're talking about alignment relates not just to the things that we do, but the things that we're thinking, as well. So the choice and consequences, how does that work?
Well, you mentioned thinking, and that's a stumbling block for a lot of people, especially when they come into my world, because I kind of call BS on that. It doesn't really matter what you're thinking. The issue is what you're doing. So when I talk about choices and consequences, a choice is the doing. You haven't made a choice until you've done something. The universe can't react to a vibration until there's a vibration to react to. And that doesn't happen until you've done something. It's the vibrational frequency of the doing that is really, that's your real power. Okay, not your thoughts. So as long as you're doing things that you enjoy doing, you're good. It's all good. Okay, and it doesn't matter if you sort of spend a lot of time. I mean, it's not an ideal life. Nobody wants to live a life like that. But it doesn't matter if you're thinking stressful thoughts, or if you're worried about something, or you just wake up and you're having a bit of a low day. We're human. We're here for the full human experience. Your soul wants to experience the duality and polarity of every possible energy, every possible feeling, every possible emotion. Okay, that's what it wants. That's why it chose to be human. But that is a physical thing. It happens in your body, not in your head. Mm. So nobody wants to spend all day feeling low, but we have low days. But as long as you're actually doing things that feel good and that are aligned to your abundance, so have an outcome that is gonna bring you joy or bring you expansion, as long as those are the tasks that you do, it doesn't matter if you're having a low day. It doesn't matter what you're thinking. Thinking happens at the fourth dimension. It's the bridge between the third dimension where we humans live and the fifth dimension where all the laws are that govern us, where the infinite part of us came from. So that's good news for a conscious creator. I call my people, my tribe, you mentioned tribes, my tribe, I refer to them as conscious creators. That's good news for them, because often they think that they need to stay in a really high vibration all the time and happy thought think their way through all the things they don't really want to do. No, that doesn't work. Unfortunately, in one sense, but fortunately in another sense. Like, you can't BS universal law. You can't bypass universal law. You can't happy thought think your way through things in the day that you don't really want to do. The universe doesn't read the happy thought. It reads the vibration underneath what you're doing, which is, oh God, this. So just don't do things that suck and you'll be good to go.
Well, yeah. So this is an interesting part that I know a lot of coaches, and I include myself in this too, grapple with. You've talked about the four sort of terrible, you call them the not so fab four.
The not so fab four, yeah.
Guilt and resentment, obligation. And as business owners, there are a lot of tasks that we need to do to keep the business running that can feel like obligation.
They can.
So given that, we can't necessarily, not everyone is in a position to offload all of the tasks that would feel like an obligation to an assistant of some kind. We have to do a lot of things ourselves. So how do you suggest we sort of counteract that sense of obligation? Oh, I've got to get my sort of income tax sorted out because it's income tax season coming up, or I've got to get my next kind of social media post together because I've got this campaign coming up, or whatever it is. There can be this level
there can be heavier tasks. There can be heavier tasks, and yeah, you can't happy thought think your way through them, right? And sometimes there are things that just got to be done. Now, I don't want to go down too much of a rabbit hole here, When it comes to taxes, for example, nobody enjoy, well, I do, because I used to be a bookkeeper, and I actually do love doing taxes, but apparently I'm out of the ordinary in that respect. Most people don't enjoy doing that kind of thing, right? And absolutely, in that situation, I would be like, right, okay, is there anybody that you can delegate that to so that you don't got to do it, you give it somewhere else? Or we at least need to be aware that in the not too distant future, that is one of the first tasks that you do get off your plate. But the other thing about it is, if you're in a situation where you're actually doing it and it's heavy, when it comes to tax season and taxes, you actually have a responsibility to do that. And money vibrates at a frequency energetically with responsibility and power. So even though it feels like obligation, you actually have a responsibility to do it. You're a business owner. It's part of being a business owner. So the fact that you're taking responsibility and getting this done means that you're not in obligation, even though it feels like it, and responsibility trumps obligation. Okay, so that's with that. And there are a few things that happen that are like that. And that certainly doesn't mean that you don't, if you're doing something that you hate doing, then you need to find a way to offload it to somebody else. But it's worth mentioning that, right? When it comes to social media stuff, though, that's different, because you don't really have to do it. You're telling yourself you have to do it. It feels like a have to task, but actually you're making a choice to do it. You're making a choice whether to do it or not. And if it's at the point where it really is heavy and you really hate doing it, or you really don't want to do it, I mean, there's a very easy way for people to identify this. If you take a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 on that scale is this sucks and I hate doing it, and 10 is I love doing this so much that I would get up in the morning and still do it even if I won the lottery tomorrow. That I do it for free, right? That's the spectrum. Now, anything that you can then mark on that spectrum, anything that you're doing in your life or your business that feels like a number 5 or less, that's obligation territory. That's the stuff you need to start moving off of your plate, because that's actually what is a misalignment energetically to you creating wealth, abundance, whatever it is, fill in your own blank, right? Anything at 6 and 7, that's okay. You can get away with it for now. They're what I call the nuts and bolts of your business, and they vibrate money. They do. They vibrate money. And your sixes and 7s are the to-do list that allows you to do the 8s, 9s, and 10s. And the 8s, 9s, and 10s vibrate the higher income levels that you're a match for. So that's where you want to spend a good chunk of your time, in your 8s, 9s, and 10s. And there will always be 6s and 7s, always. And the 8s, 9s, and 10s will eventually become 6s and 7s. Might take a couple of years, but that's how it works. And there need to be 6s and 7s, because those 6s and 7s are the things that bring everything down to earth. You know, when we're doing 8s, 9s, and 10s, especially as like, I don't know, heart-centered, high vibrational, spiritual entrepreneurs, when we're doing our 8s, 9s, and 10s, we're off with the fairies. That's the truth of it. We're off with the fairies. We're up there. We're as close to the 5th dimension that we get to be as a human being. But we're actually a human being. So we need the 6s and 7s to ground in and bring everything back down to earth, so that money shows up in a tangible way. But anything at 5 or below, that is obligation. It needs to be gotten off your plate. And one of the ways you can do it, if you are completely overwhelmed in obligation, and it happens because obligation creates more obligation. So the universe just brings you more have-tos. And then you do those, and then there's more have-tos. And then you lose your freedom, because obligation is the opposite of freedom, right? So the wonderful thing about being a conscious creator and really understanding how all this works is that you get to leverage the law, which is one of my most favorite things to do with clients. It's figuring that out with them. Because here's the thing, you can't compartmentalize energy. The universe can't compartmentalize energy. It just says yes. Good, bad, right, wrong, light, dark. It just says yes, right? So when you become aware of this knowledge, when you're reminded of the things that I teach in the world, because they are just reminders. I am just a conduit, just like everyone else, just a facilitator for that. And anybody that shows up in my orbit is meant to be there so that I can remind them of what their soul already knows and that they've forgotten. So I am just reminding everybody that this is the truth for them. But when you are in that obligation energy and you're finding that you're spending a lot of time in obligation energy, what you can do is you can look outside of your business and you can look at other areas in your life, and you can make new choices where you do less obligation. You can start off, you can detox your life of obligation in other areas where you've got more choices, where you can put your big girl pants on and set new boundaries, where you can give yourself more opportunities to do more things that feel joyful and give you more freedom and all of that. And that way you're leveraging the law, because the universe will read that frequency and that new choice and that new way of behaving, and it will say yes, and it will bring you more opportunities to do that. And then when you make new choices with the new opportunities that's showing up, you vibrationally shift. You naturally shift vibration overall. And then the other obligations start to naturally fall away. New opportunities will show up in your business and with your money as a result of you making new choices outside of your business. And you'll be able to make new choices there that vibrate to freedom. And it's just wonderful. It's just a wonderful, wonderful thing. And that's how I call it leveraging the law. And it is one of our greatest superpowers to be able to do that. And it can happen so quickly.
Yes. So much in what you've just said there. I have 15 questions that have popped up. So what you've said then, if there are things that we have to do in our business or elsewhere in our lives as well, if we do have to spend some time on that scale of 1 to 10, from the 1 to 5, those obligation kinds of things, if we're not in a position to offload those, okay, yes, we need to do those. I suppose, though, what you're talking about, if we're in a state of obligation, so we're vibrating at a lower level, we don't feel as good in our bodies, and it feels like things keep showing up that keep us stuck in that. I know you talk about evidence diaries, that is keeping track of the things that are showing up as evidence. Those things that show up that seem to feel like here's another obligation, that's the evidence where you're vibrating.
That's the evidence of the choices that you're making that vibrate at obligation. That's just the universe saying yes to the obligation that you're already saying yes to.
Yes. So the good news in that is, if you can create that, if we all can create that, we can see that by keeping ourselves in this lower vibration, by spending time in obligation, we get more obligation. The good news in that is, okay, if I can create that, I can create something different. If I get myself up into...
you can create the absolute opposite by choosing freedom instead. And going and doing things that feel like freedom to you. By looking at your schedule and creating more space in your schedule, by setting new boundaries, with yourself and honoring those with yourself and also with other people. Boundary setting around time and just literally, you know what? I realize that all this week I've been working until like 8, 9, 10 p.m. at night while I'm creating this amazing summit. And I've got all this other obligation showing up. And I'm really, really busy. And I really, really have got all this bandwidth that is just being eaten up right now. How can I possibly change it? Well, one of the things you can do is you can actually look at your schedule and say, do you know what? Just one day this week, I am going to stop at 4 p.m. no matter what. I'm not going to go till 8 p.m. No matter what, I'm going to stop at 4 p.m. And I'm not going to go and then do something else I have to do. I'm going to go for a walk, or I'm going to go for a swim, or I'm going to go and have coffee with a friend, or I'm going to go and have a date night with my partner, or I'm going to go and binge watch Netflix, or I'm going to go like anything that feels like freedom to you will vibrate freedom because it feels like freedom. Feels like freedom, looks like freedom, tastes like freedom, smells like freedom, vibrates at freedom. Universe reads freedom, says yes, drops in more opportunities to choose freedom. So that's how you break that vicious cycle. And it feels very overwhelming at first, if that's the situation you're in. I totally get it. I work with clients all the time who are in that situation, but it changes so quickly. It can literally change in a matter of, it can change overnight. The universe can bring you a new consequence overnight. And if you've got the courage to follow that breadcrumb, I call them golden breadcrumbs, you've got the courage to follow that breadcrumb and stay true to freedom, as in this example. It doesn't have to be freedom, but that's what we're talking about at this moment. As long as you do that, you'll get more of that and more of that. And you can turn it on its head in as little as 6 weeks. No kidding.
Yeah, no question about that. And I think we haven't talked about this, but I know this is another kind of principle that you teach on, which is how we're signaling the way we value ourselves. Mm-hmm. So we've been talking mostly about money and money alignment. You actually focus on 3 areas when you're working with clients: the commodity of money, the commodity of time, and then the commodity of you. And in all those things, what underlies them is the way we signal to the universe about how we value ourselves. Yeah. So if we're spending all this time in obligation, we're signaling that we don't value something better for ourselves. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, absolutely. And the reason why that's so important when it comes to business and money, I mean, even like, it's in a way, as we're having this conversation, it seems a bit lame to bring it back to business and money, because it is, as you say, it transcends everything. Like, doing obligation in your life and perpetuating that and assigning value with your time to that energy, all those have do's, got to, should do's and must do's, is really bad for your health and your well-being. Like, it's completely misaligned. It will show up first in your money and maybe your relationships, in your car, shows up in cars. But if you don't take notice of those signals that you're in misalignment and you need to make some changes, they'll show up in your body. It will show up in your body. So it feels, as I said, it feels a bit yucky to bring it back to business and money all the time, but that's my zone of genius. And the reason why it's so important, valuing yourself and your time, is so important is that money was created by human beings for us to exchange for that which we value. Money represents value. We buy things that we value. As entrepreneurs and business owners, our clients pay us money because they value our expertise. So if money is over here and good buddies, if you like, with freedom and with value because it represents value, and then you're over here devaluing yourself and devaluing your time, you're not a vibrational match for money. You're not vibrating money. You cannot vibrate money when you devalue yourself and your experience. And that's the reason why. An obligation, when you're in obligation and sacrifice, because you cannot separate the two. They go hand in hand. When you're in obligation, energy, and sacrifice, you are vibrating the opposite of money. And you are devaluing your time on this planet. You're devaluing your gifts. You're doing things that you don't really want to do. And you could be out there adding value to the lives of other people and to yourself through your gifts. Why on earth are you sitting there doing that? Like, you should be doing this. And that's where the sucky feeling comes from. It's there as a signal that, you know what, there's something better. That's your soul communicating with you. There is something better. You are out of alignment. This is important because the universe is reading everything that you're doing and bringing you more of it. And your soul knows that because your soul is infinite and is connected and is part of the universe. So it knows how all this works. And it's direct communication with you to let you know that you're out of alignment is, this sucks. I don't like doing this at all.
You've touched on your zone of genius. You're in your zone of genius when you're giving talks like these. And you can tell, you can just see your energy is beautiful and expansive and bright. And I know one of the things you teach is that, you know, what, and this is a process. So if someone among our audience today is feeling as though she's struggling, she's spending too much time in obligation, too much time doing things that don't really light her up, that, you know, this is like a good news message. You can get out of it. And when you work with clients, you tell them it'll take a period of time to transition. It might happen overnight, but more typically it's a longer process. And part of that process is learning how to apportion the time we spend on the different tasks that need doing, half of which, 50%, this is the target, should be us operating in our gift zone. So as I said, you're in your gift zone when you're doing this. Well, I'm in my gift zone when I'm putting on events and things. So let's talk, can you talk a little bit about gift zone? So what do you mean by that? How does a person figure out what her gift zone is and then be able to use it and work towards that kind of 50% of time spent being in the gift zone?
Well, that spectrum that I talked about, that scale, that 1 to 10 scale, anything that you do that is an 8, 9, or 10 is you in your gift, as long as you're adding value to the lives of other people. And that's important. Like when it's in your business, that 50% target. So you take the amount of hours that you spend on average in your business every week, you work out what 50% is, and that's the amount of hours that you need to be spending in your gift zone, in your 8, 9s and 10s. Okay. And yes, it is a target. Most people, when they come find me, they're doing, I don't know, 20, 30% in their gift zone. If they're lucky, if they've got, you know, that's pretty good actually. And the rest of their time, like the other 70, 80%, they're spending on doing sucky things that they don't really want to do, or things that don't they don't necessarily hate, but they definitely don't light them up. So they're sixes and sevens. So you know you're in your gift zone. That's the quickest, easiest way to figure it out. And you must make sure that when you're doing it, you're adding value to the lives of other people. So you've got some sort of audience, you've got somebody in front of you while you're doing it. And then in order to start doing more of your gift zone and less of the other stuff, that's where you need to tweak. That's where you can leverage, as I call it. So I already explained how you leverage. You identify the frequency that you're enjoying whilst you're doing what you're doing, and then you find other ways to do that. So find other things that you can do that make you feel close to that make you feel similar or the same, and less of the other stuff. And the thing about it is, when you're doing 8, 9s, and 10s, you're just naturally vibrating money. Money will come because that is alignment. 8, 9s, and 10s for you are you in alignment. And if money is a happy byproduct of alignment, then as a result of you doing 8, 9s, and 10s, money just lands. You don't have to worry about it. It just comes. And yes, it can take time to transition. It takes 3 to 5 months to what I call ground in a vibrational shift. And yes, along the way, you'll be getting some great opportunities showing up, more money showing up as you transition. There'll be new signposts and like breadcrumbs for you to follow all over the place. That's why tracking of evidence is such an important part of how I teach my clients to master their creational process. So you'll have some really fabulous things happening, but to ground in a vibrational shift means that you are creating something new that's a new normal for you. Once it's normal, it's sustainable. You don't want to be jumping, like hopping from vibration to vibration, doing if you do that, if you roller coaster and random your way through your business and your alignment and ping pong backwards and forwards along that vibrational spectrum, what you actually create in reality is a feast and famine income as a byproduct of the up and down that you're doing vibrationally. So once you start to master this process and you step into alignment and you spend more time at 8, 9, and 10 and less time in 6s and 7s, and start offloading and detoxing anything from 5 and below, you ground it in as normal. It becomes sustainable. And so, but you only need to start with baby steps. It doesn't have to be a great big thing, like literally playing with a couple of hours a week and actually honoring what your soul wants you to do, what your soul wants you to spend time doing, and committing to that and doing that with consistency. You get a big bang for your buck, and it will change things very, very quickly.
Yeah, the consistency is key, isn't it? Just trusting that it's going to work and just keeping at it. And it occurs to me as I'm listening to you talking about this sort of all the tasks that are obligations. And I loved what you said about, in our businesses, there are things that we have to do to keep it rolling along. And if we're not able to offload it, we need to do it. I guess there are a couple of ways we could deal with that. If we can offload it, that's ideal. If we can't, maybe think about ways we can shift our perspective on it. Like, I'm being a responsible business owner by taking care of these tasks, rather than, oh, here's something I have to do. Is no, this is what a CEO does. A CEO is responsible and takes care of these things and looks after it. But what I loved is you were talking how that, the energy cannot be compartmentalized. And so if we do have things in our businesses that are feeling kind of like obligation, okay, work to offload them, change your perspective. And while that's happening, look to really boost your energy, do spend more time doing things you love in other areas of your life. So if the business doesn't have an opportunity for that yet, and it will, then look for some other area in your personal life. And you've mentioned a few, like whether it's like going in, if you feel really grounded in yourself, doing yoga, do that. If it's out, walk in the woods, do that. If it's skydiving, I mean, just whatever it is that raises your vibration, do that. And then that will sort of, I don't like to say bleed into, but that's what happens.
It filters through. The yeses from
Yes.
the universe multiply, and then they start filtering through, because the universe doesn't compartmentalize between your personal life and your business. It can't. It's just you creating.
Right.
So it doesn't care where you're doing your 8, 9s, and 10s. As if you're doing 8, 9s, and 10s, you're going to get more 8s, 9s, and 10s to do.
Yeah.
And they'll just like it'll just bring opportunities everywhere across the board. Your job as a conscious creator in a human body is to notice and to be more aware of the conversations that you're constantly having with your soul and the universe, and starting to become more aware of the evidence that's showing up on a day-to-day basis, day-to-day, hour-to-hour, minute-to-minute.
Yeah.
Like it's all there right in front of you to like start to monitor and become more aware of, and use as a tool for course correction. It's all right there.
Yeah, when we started off, I said that while on the surface it'll seem like we have talked a lot about money in this, and so that would fit into the fourth pillar of monetization. But alignment, when we're in alignment, we're feeling like we're vibrating at those 8, 9s, and 10s. That impacts the other areas as well. So finding the right stage, you'll know whatever platform a person is using to deliver her mission and her message. It'll feel like this is exactly what I love doing, or it can feel like, oh, I've got to get on social media again. I've got to, go into these platforms. So you're talking about being conscious, a conscious creator. Another word for that would be intentional. You're doing things by intention and not just by sort of reactivity or according to what someone is telling you need to do. Not all coaches spend all their time on social media, on Facebook or Instagram or so on. If it doesn't feel right, then it's not a place to spend time, because you'll be out of alignment. And your tribe, I mean, you tend to attract, you've talked about this, you tend to attract a certain kind of person. And you'll know, because you are such a conscious creator, when someone comes to you, you'll be able to tell, you probably can tell, can't you, that this is not a good vibrational match for me. This is not a person that I want to work with. And the right tribe, I've talked about this in other interviews. It's not just about having an audience and growing the audience to be as big as possible. You're much better to have a smaller audience, a smaller tribe that really is the perfect fit, that you are in alignment with, that you help raise one another's vibrational levels. And same thing, then it spills over into the engagement strategies you're using. So this notion of alignment is so powerful and so pervasive in all areas of our life. It's so interesting. I mean, I could just talk to you all day long, Karen. So you've touched on this already. How about we just wrap up? Just say what's one of the most powerful ways that that you've seen works for someone who feels that she's not functioning enough in her gift zone. What's one tip you can give to help her move into her gift zone more often, so she can take advantage of that sort of energetic shift and the support that would come from the universe?
Well, as I said, follow the breadcrumbs. The universe, like anything that you want, anything that you desire, anytime you look at somebody else's situation, their life, their experience, and you aspire to them, that you're like, oh God, they're like, I would love to show up like that, or like I would love to feel like that, or I would love to have whatever that is that they've got. That is just a signal from your soul that that is absolutely available to you. Your version of that is it absolutely available for you. You just need to put your big girl pants on, as I say, and step further into it. Anyone that's watching that like has gravitated towards you in this wonderful summit of yours is not here by any kind of coincidence. There's no such thing as coincidence. There is no such thing as random. You know, I say it often enough, and I always say the universe just isn't that lazy. It's a ridiculous notion that there is such a thing as coincidence and random. So anybody that's here that has found you and this work because they read an email, or they spotted something on social media, or they heard someone talking about it in a group, whatever it was that got them here really doesn't matter. What's actually happened is their soul knows that there's a breadcrumb of alignment there for them somewhere, so that they can follow that and step further into it. If you're interested in creating a community, if you enjoy being in group situations, if you enjoy having those nurturing, supporting and loving conversations with people and getting feedback and bouncing ideas off of other people, if you are comfortable in other groups that make you feel that way, then you know that that is you in alignment, that creating your own version of that is you in alignment. I'm actually the opposite, as you know. For the longest time, I was like, no groups, not a thing. No groups, no communities, no, I'll borrow your community for a little bit and then you can have it back. And I was like that for the longest time. But there are people, many people, a lot of them watching this now, that have gravitated towards you because they're wired the opposite way that I am. And abundance lies there for you. So anytime you want something, that you desire something, sometimes it even shows up as a little bit of envy or jealousy. But if you've got things like that that's showing up in your world, it's just a way that your soul is communicating with you that it's absolutely available for you. And that you can trust that you can step further into that. Yes, 15 seconds of insane courage might be required, but there's something there for you. And you can step further into that, and you can try it on for size. You can, like, you know, if you know that you love speaking to an audience, if you know that you would love to lead a group or create or have retreats or create a community, or run a group program, I don't know, fill in your own blank. If you like, the fact that you want it means that that's what alignment looks like for you. So go do a small version of it. Dip your toe in somewhere so that the universe can say yes and drop in something else that you can do. Yeah. That's how you step further into it. But also at the same time, make room. If your bandwidth is cluttered up with obligation, sacrifice, resentment, and guilt, you don't have room to follow the breadcrumbs. So you need, while you're stepping further into your gift, you need to relieve yourself of what's happening at the other end of the vibrational spectrum. That's absolutely necessary. It's key. Otherwise, you just stay stuck, kind of hopping between these two vibrations, and then eventually you're just spending more and more time over here.
Yeah.
So that is what I suggest you do.
It's such a beautiful thing, and it's such a positive and uplifting potential that you're showing. Thank you for this. I love talking to you. Every time we have a conversation, I learn new things. It's like light bulbs are going off all over the place. And I know you've got a gift. It's a freebie that's always wildly popular. So can you share that with our audience now, please?
Yeah, yay, that will be my money alignment assessment. So it's a very powerful tool. And essentially what you do is you go over to my money alignment assessment, you answer the questions that I'm posing to you. Shouldn't take more than 10-15 minutes unless you want it to. You can spend as long as you like on it, but 10 minutes. Ping me the answers, so submit the answers, and it will land, and I'll have a good old look at it, and these things, they light up like a Christmas tree for me. I'll be able to see straight away what the things that you can do immediately are gonna move the needle of alignment and open that money channel and get that big bang for your buck. I'll be able to see it straight away, and then I'll tell you all about it, and then you can go do it.
That's awesome.
That is what it is, and it's one of my favorite things to do with people. I love doing it with people. I put a lot of value into them. I love doing them so much. My clients love doing them with me, and I always make sure that anyone will leave that call knowing something that they didn't know, and getting their own light bulb moments and their own clarity on their next steps. That is my intention, is always that they leave that conversation feeling better than they did when they got on it. And I don't think I've failed yet.
I can attest to that. I can vouch for that. Thank you so much, Karen. This has been tremendously helpful. Just as I said, my brain just spins every time I have a conversation with you. I just have a million things, possibilities that are popping up. So thank you for sharing your time and your wisdom, your beautiful gift. And thank you for doing this. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been an absolute treat. Thank you for having me.